Welcome to the Sports Business Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Berger. My guest is Sandra Greer. She is the Insight Director for MKTG. They're longtime friends of the show. You can find them on Twitter at MKTG. There's a report called Frontier 2018 based on a survey of over 500 sponsorship professionals in the sports and entertainment industry worldwide. And Sandra is going to tell us some of the findings of this report, some interesting things. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us from London. What is it? I think we've got like an 8-hour difference.
8 hours, yep.
And I know England gave it a pretty good run there in World Cup. You guys are pretty excited, right?
Yes, we had hopes. But we did pretty well.
You did really well.
Yeah, we'll be ready on form for the Euros. So in a couple of years' time. So we had a young team, and hopefully we've prepared them.
So let's dig into the Frontier 2018 report that you guys did. Growth in the sponsorship market. I know that's something that we're continuing to see trend upward. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, we've always seen people being very optimistic about the sponsorship industry, and it continues to be so as it becomes accepted as a marketing channel. It's fought very hard over the years to become part of marketing and separate from advertising, but it's really rallying its cause. But what we're really seeing, not only is it growth in people getting involved as they realise it can actually achieve quite a few objectives and reach very different audiences and engage, but it's actually expanding in many different ways in what is becoming termed in the sponsorship arena. So, we've got esports coming in, so we've got sort of new sports coming in that need sponsors. We've got things like women's sport, which is a very big area here, certainly, and growing globally as women are seen very much as role models, great ambassadors, and a very, very good way of reaching certain markets, particularly families, etc. We've got much wider use of sponsorship in other ways. For example, corporate social responsibility programs that were originally just sort of in a corporate budget. They've become more commercial in a way and being sponsored and achieving clear objectives for sponsors. We've got employee engagement. That's really, really useful as people want to keep their employees loyal and retain them because of the cost of recruitment is going up, and you want to keep the best employees, and sponsorship offers some great assets for that area. And wider and wider is this area of brand ambassadors as people and athletes become great role models again for people to sponsor and go in on a B2B basis, not just on a consumer basis. There's a lot more brand ambassadors talking at conferences, etc., and going to events to talk to hospitality guests. So sponsorship is growing in terms of the way it growth in revenue, but it's really come from lots and lots of different areas coming in, and it's not just that badging exercise of a name on a shirt or a billboard around a pitch.
Now, the other thing the Frontier 2018 report discusses, some of the findings in there, is the value of social media around sponsorship and really enhancing and amplifying the sponsorship campaign around social media. Can you dig in on that a little bit?
Yeah, so social media in the last few years, last 10 years really, has grown, and it's become a very easy way to amplify a sponsorship, and people can access it very well. They can target their particular audiences. They can talk content, give content out, etc. And it really, really has grown enormously. And it's now the number one activation platform for sponsors. The only area that there is a challenge of is really getting that authenticity of engagement with people.
Right.
It's still not that touchy-feely element that people are there, but it's a great one for reach. in terms of getting quite big numbers. It's certainly good for the younger audience, and people need to really understand their audiences as who does engage with social media. So it has grown enormously, as I say. The challenge is this engagement, which is why we've also seen on the flip side, weirdly enough, is a growth in getting real in terms of actual live events and experiences on the ground, that people can get that touch and feel the brand and experience the brand in that way. And one of our findings was that 9 out of 10 believe that the audiences they're trying to reach are actually trying to demanding experiences rather than things. So that really, really is growing in that area as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I see a lot of brand ambassadors, as you call them, plugging things and being part of sponsorship campaigns. But you want the authenticity, right? Like, you want to actually believe that the person touting that is authentically aligned with that company. But then, we also see that too, just the growth of experiential events, and that people want memories versus, something that you can put in their hand. They want something that they can bring their colleagues to, or bring their family to, bring their friends to, and that's much more memorable and sticky for them than anything else.
I think that's right, and as it does cover employees, consumers, hospitality guests. So hospitality is changing. That's where those ambassadors are in the box talking to people. They've got that connection. They might be past players. They can talk them through it. But it is those memories, and it is, if you just think of, if you want to go and watch a big event, it's everyone around you that really makes it. A solitary person on your phone, following something on social media isn't the same as that huge involvement with everybody when you're actually at that event and being there, and the fan parks around that you can go there. Good for the brands, because they can actually showcase their brands as well, and we're seeing a rise in that where people can showcase their particular products and services in order for people to see them in real life. So it is, I think memories is a really, really good word. Then they can share it on social media.
Right.
That's when it really gets really good, because then they've taken their pictures, and a lot of the experiential events connect to social media, ask you to share, use the hashtag, etc. So the amplification of that one experience that might reach maybe 100,000 people at one big event, or 5,000 at a small event, then amplifies enormously as it's shared amongst the right audience, because people share with like-minded people, which gives another really good effect to the sponsor.
Last thing we'll discuss is when people embark on these campaigns and they make these expenditures, they want to be able to measure the return on investment. Did this work? Did I engage the people? Was my brand memorable? What are you finding about that?
Well, to be fair, it could be better. Across brands, rights holders and agencies, and it was similar across all of them, about a fifth actually said they were confident that they could measure the business value of return, which is disappointing in many ways. I think it goes back to the social media side. There's lots of metrics that people gather. How many people, how many impressions, likes, etc., which is great. And you get, 1,000 people came to this event using attendance data. And we classify that really as metrics, i.e. it's substantiating the assets that you've had, and that you have got KPIs against them that you wanted to reach X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, you went into that sponsorship for a reason, and a business reason. Similar to if you were doing an advertising campaign or a marketing or PR campaign, it would be something around the brand that you wanted to shift brand values, raise awareness, actually get more transactions if you really could. And that's the area that people tend to be missing in terms of the evaluation side, going back to their original objectives and being able to evaluate it. So from our point of view, what we do is we start right at that beginning stage whenever we're talking to anyone, whether they're in a selection process. And as we go through, we set targets, but they have to implement different types of research in order to go back to find that out. It might be from their brand trackers, that they can measure awareness of the brand of those who were exposed to the particular sponsorship. They may well put in place a special sponsorship tracker, which is quite frequent, where they can see those exposed. Even attendance surveys are undertaken where people who have sampled the product at the event, are they more likely to buy that product in the future because they've been there? Those are the types of metrics that we really, really are looking for to be measured, so that when it comes to the end of the time or the break clause is due in a contract, someone can actually go up to the chief exec and say, you know what, we've got this far with our objectives, but we're not quite there yet. We'd like to carry on for another couple of years, or we've achieved our objectives, but we believe we can do different types of objectives and move that on. So that was a disappointing area on that. I actually presented the findings at a sponsorship conference and asked everyone to vote before I gave them results, and it was a similar figure for those in the room, which was it was surprising to them as well, that they didn't really have that confidence to be able to do it across, and it is across brands, rights holders and agencies who should be putting that in place on behalf of the brands.
Interesting stuff. So where can people find the Frontier 2018 report if they wanted to read more of the findings?
Well, they can email me. They can email MKTG in the States, and I can give you those email addresses. I'll have to do that later, Brian. But otherwise, it should be on mktg.com.
That's great. And again, on Twitter at MKTG, on Instagram at MKTG as well. Sandra Greer, Insight Director for MKTG. Really fascinating stuff. I know you worked really hard on this report, and good findings. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports Business Radio.
Thank you, Brian.